Today, I want to dive a little deeper into two of my current favorite cameras, which is the Blackmagic Pixis and the Red Komodo X. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the price point. The Blackmagic Pixis comes in around 3,000 USD, while the Red Komodo X comes in around 7,000 US dollars. Now, that's a pretty significant difference in price, and it really does make a difference in terms of putting the Pixis ahead in terms of just pure value. I think Blackmagic has always priced their cameras aggressively, and the Pixis is no exception. The Pixis is such a great entry point for filmmakers. However, if you know anything about Red, then you know the price of $7,000 for the Komodo X is a really good entry point. Red has typically been priced out for most filmmakers and often reserved for higher end productions. So to be able to get into the Red ecosystem for the price point of the Komodo X, it's quite a fantastic deal. Now I want to talk about the build quality. Both of these cameras are top-notch. Blackmagic has come such a long way from when they first started making cameras. The Pixis features multiple mounting options all over the camera body. This makes rigging the Pixis extremely easy right out of the box, whether you need a simple rig or a complex cinema rig. Now, the mounting options on the Komodo X are quite limited. You really do need to use a cage on this body to give you some good options. The body also features this proprietary pins, which give you the ability to relay camera information to Red's top handle or camera monitor. This is a really great feature, but considering the price point of those accessories, I don't think it's a good value. Now, the buttons on the Pixis are really well laid out and easy to find. This makes operating the camera extremely convenient. You can customize multiple function buttons. It's so nice not having to dig through the menu system to, for example, if I just want to change the zebras or check false colors. And the button layout on the Komodo X is quite limited. You have these 5 small buttons on top of the camera body, which essentially is just used to navigate the menu system. There is one function button that you can customize, and you can also customize the record buttons. However, I don't think that's ideal, and I think most people are going to leave them to their default action of record. Now, I want to talk about the onboard monitors on both of these cameras. The Pixis monitor is located on the side of the body. If you're a solo shooter, this really isn't a great place to have the monitor, especially considering it doesn't flip out. Now, if you're mainly doing handheld work, there's really no way to monitor the camera unless you have an onboard external monitor or EVF. However, if this is primarily being used on set with a crew and on a tripod, I don't think the placement of this monitor is that much of an issue. And Blackmagic's UI is still best in class. It's so easy to navigate and it really does speed up time on set. Now, the Komodo X's camera monitor is located on top of the body. This placement makes it really easy to view. However, both the small size and the UI makes it less than ideal. It is really difficult to make the necessary adjustments quickly and effectively, especially when you have it rigged up. Now, it's also very difficult to get a good feel of what your image looks like on the screen considering how small it is. And after using both of these cameras, I actually prefer the monitor on the Pixis, even though it's on the side of the body. Okay, next let's talk about battery life and power draw of both of these cameras. Now, the Pixis uses Sony BP style batteries and the Komodo X uses V-mount batteries. So I'm going to be using a adapter to make sure I can use V-mount batteries on the Pixis just to make it a little bit more comparable. And the battery I used for the test is the Core Nano X V-mount batteries. The Komodo X lasted 4 hours and 45 minutes and the Pixis lasted 3 hours and 55 minutes. Keep in mind that these factors will change depending on altitude, temperature, and even your record settings. Okay, now to talk about today's sponsor, Audio.com. Audio.com is a premier music licensing platform designed to elevate your projects. Founded by industry professionals, Audio.com offers a vast library of high-quality, royalty-free music and sound effects, with new tracks added daily. Whether you're producing YouTube videos, podcasts, films, or even commercial projects, Audio.com's licensing options has you covered. Audio.com's user-friendly interface and advanced search features, including the innovative Link Match AI, make finding the perfect track a breeze. Visit Audio.com today and transform your creative projects with the perfect sound. Okay, next I want to talk about the sensors found on these cameras. The Red Komodo X is a Super 35 6K global shutter sensor. So the global shutter essentially just means it captures the whole frame in its entirety, effectively eliminating rolling shutter. In contrast, the Blackmagic Pixus is a full frame 6K sensor, and at 6K open gate, the readout time for this sensor is approximately 25 milliseconds, which results in some pretty bad rolling shutter, especially during fast camera movements or quickly moving subjects. It's hard to compare a full frame and a Super 35 sensor effectively and fairly, but I do prefer the sensor found on the Komodo X. Next, I want to talk about the dynamic range of both of these cameras. And for this part of the video, I'm going to be relaying information found on CineD's website. They have an extensive breakdown of calculating dynamic range found on both of the sensors in these cameras. The Pixus claims to have 13 stops of dynamic range, and in CineD's test, they found it to have 11.6 stops of total dynamic range. Now, the Komodo X claims to have 16.5 stops of dynamic range, but in CineD's test, they found it to have 12.9 stops. Now, just to put that into perspective, the ARRI Alexa 35 tested for 15 stops of dynamic range in the same test. Given that the Komodo X is a global shutter sensor, the dynamic range is quite impressive for this camera. I'll link all the CineD articles in the description below. Now, let's talk about RAW, because both of these do offer RAW, but it's important to understand how they approach RAW. B-RAW employs a partial in-camera demosaic process. This method balances performance and file size. In contrast, RED utilizes a wavelet-based compression algorithm, allowing for significant data reduction while still maintaining a very high-quality image. Essentially, this means that Blackmagic RAW is smaller and easier to work with. RED RAW uses a very fancy type of compression, which is still patented, to keep the highest quality possible while making the file size manageable. Okay, now in terms of color depth, B-RAW is limited to 12-bit, which is suitable for most professional applications. The RED RAW, on the other hand, supports up to 16-bit color depth, which offers wider dynamic range, greater color precision, which is really beneficial for higher-end productions and visual effects, especially if you're doing lots of color grading. Now, the choice between B-RAW and RED RAW ultimately depends on your specific needs and requirements. For most projects, 12-bit is more than enough, but for higher end production work, the 16-bit really does come in handy. Okay, so in conclusion, the Komodo X offers superior dynamic range, has the global shutter, and has higher frame rate capabilities, making it really ideal for higher end productions. However, it does come at a higher price point compared to the Pixus, which provides great performance, especially if you're taking in the price into consideration. Now, if I had to pick a camera right now, I would ultimately go for the Pixus just for the value that it has, and it still produces a fantastic image. That being said, I am a happy owner of the Red Komodo X, so take that for what it is. Okay, so we're gonna be showing some footage that we shot with both of these cameras. We'll reveal which camera was which at the end. But one thing to keep in mind is that this is a Super 35 sensor, while this one is a full frame sensor. So we put the Desofilm Artlist 25mm on here, effectively making it about a 34mm equivalent to the full frame. And on the Pixus, we put the Desofilm Artlist 35mm. I'll be slightly cropping in on this camera just so it matches the field of view of the Pixus. Now, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below of what you think each camera is, but stay tuned because at the end of the video, I will reveal that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you on the next one. Okay, so I just want to walk you through what we guys are doing here. We have the Komodo X and also the Blackmagic Pixis, and we're using the Desofilm R-less prime lenses. We have the 25 mil on the Komodo, so that's giving us roughly a 33 to 34 millimeter field of view. And then on the Pixis, since it's full frame, we're using the 35 millimeter. So we're trying to match them as close as possible. And when we're doing a blind test, so hopefully you can or cannot tell the difference. We'll find out. Turn slightly to your left, like your shoulder. Yeah. Now let's try that. Yeah. Honestly, I would prefer it if it's like a little more from a top down, just a touch.
Yeah, I like it.
Before we roll though, I do want to say this is a wonderful use of the side monitor on the Pixis because we have the DP Matt here using the onboard monitor, and then I have a chance to view the side monitor. So this is a really good use case of why this placement actually does work. I do still wish it was a flip out, but it works really, really well. Okay, and here we go. 3, 2, 1, and action. So this is the original shot that we were going for, and as you can tell, there's just no depth. We don't have a lot of art decor on the table as well, so it's making the shot look really flat. So this is why we switched it up to this shot that we have now, and it's just so much better because we get that depth, we get the light coming in, so it's a lot nicer. Can you tell if this is doing anything, or should we just leave it?
Oh yeah, you can definitely see it.
So set it up.
Try and put it on the edge of her face.
Like right here?
Kind of like that, yeah, like right below her neck, kind of.
Okay.
Nice. The 1200 channel? Yeah, okay, great. Good cut? Yeah, cut.